Hello.
Hello, how are you?
You've always been stuck with that picture. Can't you change like a new image in the back?
I have to change it. I was thinking that yesterday. It's time to put up a new one.
Does that run on a program?
It could. I usually just change it myself because I have ideas about what I want to put there. But I think the biggest problem is I just haven't figured out what to replace it with.
Where do you go and
Just the internet, I see
because
something, find a piece of
you do you Google image something and you pull it in?
and I go through this long, complicated process of putting it into Adobe's Lightroom or some app that resizes it. And then it's all very
Well, we can write a smart contract for that.
smart contract for anything.
Yeah. What I've found is so I'm going back to the tutorial that you sent me a while ago, the EOS game.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And I can follow it better, but I've hit a snag because these bozos want to do this is just a nerd thing, and I'm not a nerd, please. Well, maybe I am. I don't know. Because I'm getting upset over stupid things like that. Their front end is written in this thing called React, and I think you remember me make faces when I said React. It's this really stupid, convoluted thing. And if people happen to be listening to this, they may correct me. This it's JavaScript, using JavaScript to spit out CSS and front end stuff, which there is a running debate now in the dev world that that's not really a good use of JavaScript. But the people at Facebook, I think it came from the engineers at Facebook who made this React.js. That it's unnecessarily convoluted and it creates a lot of dependency. So what I mean to say is, I'm going to be able to follow this tutorial up to a certain point, and I will have to improvise from there, because their front end is like, I want to use React.js, and I say, you're stupid. No. So
I will follow you anywhere, Tom.
oh yeah.
Through the gates
Anyway,
of
well,
whatever you want to do. I think
gates of hell is what we're trying to at least approach and rattle. And
so you're going to build the token on the EOS blockchain to start?
Yeah, there's no other way to do it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Part of my learning curve is when you sent me down this rabbit hole of this whole world is the terms and phrase are just knowing what people mean when they say certain things, and going back to what we're saying, why I'm trying to figure out the adoption rate is so slow and painful for blockchain. It's because of how they name things, their naming conventions. For example, smart contract. All it is a program.
I know.
Sorry, all it is a program. They want to be clever. They call it smart contract. I mean, we can go into it and really dissect why it's called smart contract.
Well, but when you put smart before anything, you're being kind of hustled.
Yeah, or they're just trying to be smart, a smart ass.
Right. About it. Like smart water or smart homes. Like
yeah, because if you really go ahead.
Right. I was going to say the smart home is a light bulb. Sorry, somebody just rang the buzzer. I have to go let the groceries people in. Pardon me. Pardon me.
It was fast. Didn't you have to sign anything or give him a tip?
No, he's downstairs. He'll just leave it outside.
Oh, okay. Now that you mentioned about a food delivery, I have to tell you, there was an example of what a smart contract can do. And when I saw it, I was thinking, this is written by a Tower of Babel lover. This smart contract replaces the need for people to replace your vending machine.
Okay.
Because in their mind, people in general are not necessary to fulfill certain function. I mean,
Snickers bars and sticking them in the machine.
exactly, because the early examples of what smart contract do is like, oh, we're going to replace the bankers, we're going to replace the bureaucrats. Now, in these people's mind, their smart contract will replace. Why do we need the guy working the lower wage? The machine will do that for you. Do you see what I mean? Their approach. So I think I was wondering if the blockchain smart contract represents a decentralized world, meaning we're giving power back to people, and removing power from the bankers and the people, the powers that be. But these people are thinking there's a way to make smart contract to actually consolidate power, which is
Well, that's where the money is, right? I mean, any fool can see that these things are going to create a massive shift in control away from centralized authorities. So all the centralized authorities who are sitting on the big pots of money right now are putting up big bounties to say, hey, anybody can figure out how to kind of stop this from happening, then we'll give them lots of money.
Or how to write a smart contract that would benefit us in the end. So what I found weird is that even in so-called decentralization, people can actually write smart contract that will replace the Iowa jobs. It's possible. You can actually cut out people. They're already thinking about writing apps for that.
Yeah,
So
but you still need the guy to drive to, the bowling lanes and with a box of Snickers bars and fill up the vending machine.
Okay, the people who are building that thing behind you have thought of a way to write a smart contract where they will actually even replace the guy writing that. So you see, their inclination would just make them want to.
Sure, no, I can understand the desire. I just don't understand technically how you get the Snickers bar into the vending machine.
Well, welcome AI. This is where the.
Okay, so then there's a magic robot that will wander around the world putting Snickers bars in vending machines.
Yes, yeah. That's what they're thinking. That is what they're thinking. Well, I'm telling this is what they're thinking. That the smart contract in theory self-execute and send a signal to the robot that will be owned by the oligarch.
Right, but if anybody wants that to happen today, it's Amazon, right? I mean, they have these big warehouses and they would love.
Oh, they're working on it. They're working on it already. They're trying to figure out, okay, this thing is coming. It would potentially take power away from us. How can we, other bits and pieces in there that we could rewrite that would.
A lot of people making $17 an hour walking around with things, putting them in boxes.
Yeah, or the smart contract will replace that. So, the devil can always subvert things.
But
anyway,
I think the most important function of the smart contract is to act as the fiduciary. So, like you just said, right? The contract doesn't execute unless the oracle tells it to.
Ideally, that's the ideal division for smart contracts, is that you remove human bias and human error in the third party.
So you have so you just have all these oracles that broadcast states and conditions, and then all these contracts that execute based on states and conditions. So but that's the thing, is that all of a sudden you don't need a company anymore, right? I mean, anybody could just write a oracle and a contract to execute based on the oracle, and then you just becomes a whole sea of competing oracles.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that when you look at it, there's no such thing as a clean escape from the system that we're in, because now there's also a debate is, well, hold on a minute, who gets to write the oracle? That there's a concern that oracles could potentially be tampered with, And who owns the Oracle, the hardware and the software for that too. So I'm just saying it's not an easy escape there from this world that we've been,
it sort of reminds me of the transition from monarchies to bureaucracies, right? I mean, like if you look at, in Europe or these places, you got a king, the king has some ministers, he's got a small government, they kind of more or less run things based on how they think it ought to be done, kind of like a corporate model, right? I mean, the king is the CEO, and then he's got a bunch of vice presidents running around trying to keep some sort of system running. And then you switch to these just giant unaccountable bureaucracies where you have people doing random stuff. The thing that hopefully that the blockchain allows for is competing bureaucracies that we don't have today, right? Today we have one DMV. In a blockchain governance model, we'd have an infinite number of DMVs, right? You could go and you could just get your driver's license. There'd be a smart contract with a set of conditions, and then an oracle that said you met the conditions.
Right.
And then the system would give you a license for meeting conditions that the oracle could see.
But it should be noted that the skill set required to create an oracle, blockchain, a smart contract, whatever, is not egalitarian. It still comes from a certain class of people, those people who think, whose tendency and attitude and nature is that they want to build another pyramid or a tower that's better than, it will come out, it will surface. I'm already seeing, when you follow what they talk about in their dev world, what they could do with it.
Well, that's why we need to start the pirate blockchain club.
The pirate blockchain club, and I want to emphasize again. You brought up the term Christ-centered tech bros. That's a very important concept too. Being Christ-centered in your approach to things. Otherwise, this new batch of people, these nerds, think that they're gonna do better than the last one, but they're really just part of the same pattern. If you ask me, I'm watching their nature and attitude.
Well, it's nihilist, right? I mean, all it is, there's no meaning, there's no point to it all. It's just, let's keep trying to create a system that governs better than the previous system, but we have no point to the system. We just keep having slightly cooler ways for it to work.
And this also has something to do with another discussion that's been going on for the last 10 years about the singularity, the AI that a lot of people are concerned about.
That's just a neo-apocalyptic ideology, right?
It could be, but I'm just saying from what I'm looking at things, zooming out, I'm already seeing pieces of that.
Oh yeah.
Potentially, they can just come together because if you believe what James Madison wrote about government, politics, human nature, that there's a Newtonian kind of Newtonian physics at play, meaning gravity. Anything with a mass would naturally want to become bigger. This is how the universe works. That's how planets form, galaxies form. Right. I'm already seeing this attitude, like, well, okay, let's just keep writing this better. But what are you writing it better for, and who are you writing it for?
Well, I think ultimately what's driving it is shareholder profits, right? I mean, you're trying to create what we call efficiency, and efficiency drives profits for shareholders. And so we have this shareholder class, like people like you and me, frankly, that have assets that we like some return on, and we keep telling the people who manage our assets, get us a better return. And so that whole attitude sort of filters through the society, and everybody builds things to drive more efficiency. The problem is you end up, just driving everybody into a suicidal depression because most people don't want to be efficient, right? I mean, the point isn't to hoover in 800 calories as efficiently as possible. The point is to sit down and have a pleasant dinner and a glass of wine and a chat.
Right.
But the shareholders would like to see, us kind of sucking on a bag of goo.
Yes.
We could get back to work. None of this farting around.
So,
it's like if you just look at how all these big companies manage their workers, I mean, they're, this like it's kind of weird and scary, right? Where these poor people are, every movement, every motion they take is tracked, and steps are counted, and bathroom breaks are monitored, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's got to kind of wear on you after a while.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they're probably thinking of a smart contract for that too.
Sure. Well, the Oracle, there's an Oracle going, like, did you, there's the bathroom Oracle, right?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm saying it can go both ways. That the blockchain itself is not necessarily a clean escape from.
There's a biometric sensor in the toilet that can tell whether you peed or not, or are you just sitting there fiddling.
That's a smart contract. I mean, can you imagine? They're going to write a smart contract for to do with prison guards. So I don't need a prison guard. My smart contract will put these drones, and if prisoner so-and-so step out of line, the smart contract will self-execute. The idea with self-contract is that it will execute without human error. And that, for me, there's a movie for that. It's called Terminator.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can either go Terminator way, or it can go like complete indie. People are free and they have the means to write their own smart contract. So that's where both, but this is where I see the need to demystify this whole thing about learning how to program and write smart contract. I think for this thing to become truly free and absorbed, like benefit the people, part of it is like they need to have the knowledge of how it works too. Otherwise, we're going to end up having going back to this same cycle pattern of requiring a special class of techno priests, gatekeepers to interpret the Bible for you and what the code means.
Well, at some point, like a conciliar process, which I call, is like a priesthood isn't a bad thing, as long as they're, because it stops people from getting too kooky. It's because look, without some kind of like, you don't want everyone to go full Jim Jones in the jungles of Guyana drinking the Kool-Aid.
No, there's a checks and balance, but
you need a little bit of a check and balance in there.
There are two types of priests: the one who serves the state and the one who serves the people. And
right. Well, that's why you need the popular priest, the popular thinker.
You're looking at two of them,
right? But I mean, like, you don't want to go full Ruby Ridge and start building your commune in the mountains surrounded by guns.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I think what we're doing is probably the equivalent of wanting to take, who was the guy in Germany that printed the Bible? The Gutenberg? No.
Well, Gutenberg, yeah, there's a bunch of them, but yeah, Gutenberg was the guy who printed.
Well, at least for me, I don't know about you. I want to take all this whole thing about smart contract, blockchain, whoop-de-doo, make something that people will get right away, and also know how it works under the hood. That's important to me. That's the equivalent of giving you a Bible in a language that you know how to read and you can read on your own. Yes, you go to Sunday church and hang out with other people and get your sermon, but you own it. That's part of the indie spirit, versus you having to, I don't know, go sign up in a dev community and listen to these weirdos talk about let's build a smart chain and replace all these useless, these low-paying jobs of these people. Don't worry about them. They'll find something else Elon Musk will create some other machine that would just work with the Oracle and smart contract. Like, no, this is not the world we want to build.
Nope. And it's not going to happen. I mean, in the short term, anyway. I mean, maybe 100 years from now, but there's just a lot of problems that have to be sorted out.
Yeah.
What happens if somebody puts a plant in front of the vending machine? The that robot thing can't move the plant.
They're going to say it can. Well, I'll write out the smart contract for that.
Right. Well, you got to move the plant, right? So, your delivery robot doesn't have plant moving capability. So then, well, now you're in a mess.
The Oracle part is the most interesting because it's a bit of what we were trying to solve with the so-called fourth wall thing. So that is their solution to the fourth wall. They literally have a hardware and software on the ground, they barely broke down the fourth wall with their thing. But right now, it's just currently being able to read temperature and human input,
right,
and some other things. But eventually, I can imagine they would think of a hardware that would actually go out on its own and check things, police things, and then feed that back to the smart contract.
Well, like for example, if you were going to use your phone to securitize your pledge on in Dark World, an Oracle could ping the IEMI to see if your phone is connected to the network and still in existence, right? So that as long as the Oracle says the phone's still alive, then your pledge is still good. And if the Oracle fails to find your phone, then then you get a message going, hey, the value that you've created will be destroyed unless you fix this problem. For example, that's a way to.
Yeah. So that's what I meant when I said there will be emerging complementary markets for this. So I haven't seen what an Oracle hardware and software looks like, but I imagine that you would need something. They're going to work on that too. Just like nowadays, there's a whole market for people who store their key, their hard wallet, they call it. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Yes, Trezor. Do you have one?
I have one somewhere. It's in a drawer.
Yeah, I just printed mine and just left it there. I'm probably going to send it to you. It's just so convoluted. Did you have to remember 6 words or something?
No, it's convoluted. But you get used to it, right? You figure it out. It's like write it down.
I could imagine that the Oracle itself will eventually become maybe a robot, like something, an android in the future, because it's going to walk around and make sure that the contracts are still intact.
I also think there's going to be people will serve the functions of oracles, right? I mean, we're going to have a judiciary.
So if you do that, then doesn't that kind of go back to why we need intermediaries? Because the idea with smart contracts is you don't need people to.
Right, but just some things you will. I mean,
yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, think like home repairs. Like say you guys are going to renovate the kitchen. So instead of the thing where you have a fight between Joe and the contractor at the end, where Joe's like, there's 15 things that you have to fix, and the contractor's like, I don't feel like doing it because I'm done. And then you just fight about the bill. You would have a third-party Oracle service that would just come in and go, okay, you fix the things, you pay him the money, done. There just wouldn't be the fight anymore, right? It would just be a very simple.
No, the Oracle would just be equipped with a pistol and says, "You fix the thing." Can you?
The money would be in the smart contract, so the Oracle would just say, "Okay, I'm not clicking job end job until these 5 things are done according to the customer satisfaction, and I'm going to be the guy who has the neutral third-party opinion about whether or not they're satisfactory."
Yeah.
So the contractor can say, okay, but it's a form of judiciary, right? For like small, stupid fights.
I think it will work for small, stupid fights, like you said. I don't see why these dev nerds think they're going to replace judges and lawyers for a really more complex thing. Because in theory, you can write smart contracts that are just as dense and
Well, yeah, but here's the difference: is like if you and I have a contract, right? Like say, I don't know, I do some work for you, and you're going to pay me $1,000. Well, I got to go sue you for the money, which is expensive.
mhm.
So then I got to go get a $50,000 injunction, go to court, just like a whole and then even say I win, then I've got to enforce my judgment, which means I got to go to your bank and I got to go somehow garnish your account or a tag. That's another long, complicated process which you can fight and move around. And whereas in the smart contract world, in order to renovate the kitchen, you actually have to post the $50,000 for the budget into the contract. So at the end, the guy goes, yes, no. It's a fast, it's a quick, and then each party rates the experience, right? So if the contractor says this judge is a complete moron, he doesn't understand anything, and he totally screwed me, then I'm gonna have trouble getting jobs, getting picked as an oracle for the next job.
Yeah.
Whereas if both parties are like, yeah, 4 stars, then everyone's like, all right, sounds like the guy did his job. It just stops the sloppiness.
We can teach people to write their own smart contract, but again, I think when it gets a little complicated, they'll still need lawyers to someone to advise them to write a contract that your oracle won't become like a Terminator android and go and literally execute the other party. Which who knows? Maybe in the world of hitman and assassins, everything go, oh, this is a great idea. Now we could use this. I'm just thinking that a lot of people are seeing like what they could do with smart contract. Some for good and some for bad.
But for example, a small sole practitioner lawyer who's interested in construction with some knowledge of the construction business could actually write the smart contracts for contractors doing kitchen renovations, right? And just go, look, part of the deal is just to make this simple for you guys. I'm going to charge $50,000 job. The smart contract Oracle service is a $500 service. So the guy has this off-the-shelf thing. He modifies it a little bit. And then at the end, he just kind of has to get involved and go, okay, punch list, yes, no. And then he hits the button. So that there's a role for a lawyer to get involved, or a judge or an oracle, whatever you want to call it, to get involved and be a domain expert. Maybe it's not even a lawyer. Maybe it's like a guy who's, doesn't want to be a contractor anymore, but, he's just learned how to evaluate jobs.
There's a term that I'm just learning. It's called code is law. Yeah. And that's the idea with smart contract. And it had me thinking also, can we, in the future, distant future, would there be a nation where their constitution would be written in code? So let's say, if the people in charge do what the people are doing now, just printing lots of money and doing all the stupid thing, the contract that says, you know what? Nope.
Well, you wouldn't even have to have the contract would say no, because in a blockchain world, you would have private money. So if people started printing money, then their money would lose value. Right? They'd have to actually back it by some kind of asset.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I was thinking the smart contract would just execute figuratively and literally the person in charge.
People would, there'd be a whole world of risk managers who would say, well, one regime buck is really worth 2 dark coin right now because the regime is printing is creating a ton of money, and the assets that are backing the regime's money are kind of dubious.
But it would be, I don't know, it'd be easier or harder to, a smart contract would make it easier to remove the person in power, and
it would more just give the person in power less ability to to do anything because they wouldn't matter.
No, they wouldn't matter. And I was thinking that it would cut off the access, and the access is not a centralized physical place since it's decentralized, and they wouldn't have access to that money or whatever mechanism they need to do a more stupid thing.
Right, it's like the stock trader, right? I mean, he doesn't have a ton of power. He just he either made money or he didn't.
Yeah, it could be. President so-and-so, I'm sorry, your account has been suspended. The smart contract of the 25th century states that, when you violated these terms, the Oracle has decided you are no longer the so-and-so.
Or people just switch regimes, right? I mean, in theory, in a blockchain world, there would be multiple governance regimes you could participate in. So you would just go, look, President Bongo there, I'm done. You're not running this. It's the same way you go, I don't like McDonald's anymore. I'm going to Burger King. You just be
that's one type of smart contract too. Yes, where you have to be voted on. But you know me, I think it was a bit of a Freudian slip there. It's the kind of government that I think is ideal, where it's just self-executing, no elections, no democracy, just. Like a traffic light. Why do I need to vote on why the traffic light every 4 years has to have a new color? It always works for me. That's the program.
Or worse, why? Do we have to get around and vote whether to change from green to red?
Thank you. So the same traffic light that
works.
No, really. I've said this before. Well, why can't government and policy work like a traffic light? I mean, the one that you see that at Junkins worked there for 20 years. It services everyone, no matter what car you drive, what race you are. It keeps things orderly so that you can go and do what you want without crashing, minding your own business. And then my smart contract would just put a gun there. Like this bozo was trying to set up a weird roadblock or like weird toll. It would just like shoot you. So that's my ideal of government, the smart contract government. Don't get me wrong, I'm still a big fan of the American Republic and the Constitution. I try to work with it, but personally, that's if I could live for another 500 years and write a smart contract for a future generation, it would be governed by a smart contract that would just shoot you if you get out of line. Which is, I guess, totalitarian. But see, we're coming back full circle.
I think we'd all be shot eventually.
Yeah. The smart contract would just shoot the person who wrote the contract because it's like, why do I even need this human? Yeah.
Exactly. It would shoot you, and the first guy would shoot. You'd be like, hey, you. But I don't know. That's why. So that you're building a just securitize an asset program.
This baby steps. Right now, I'm trying to get some of the front end part on the blockchain, and which is. But then, so everything that's on the blockchain around it's still a little different from what we were talking about earlier about IPFS.
Yes,
that is very blockchainy, but it's not necessarily like you need to write it in a blockchain. That it uses the same kind of framework. We can talk about that next time.
Yeah, no, I get it.
All right. So hopefully next week we could see something simple like a simple form where you input something, and it would tell you you've just given Tom 40 EOS.
40
whatever you want to call it.
You pick, I don't care.
Dark coin. I don't think we want to talk about that coin thing. It's just splitting hairs, the coin token. But they're very hung up. I'm just telling you, they're very hung up on it. If you go to these forums, like, don't call your stuff a coin. It's on EOS.
Right.
No, it's a token.
Like all those people that would get all snitty when you said HIV virus. It's not the HIV virus. It's HIV. Whatever.
Yeah. But eventually, in the future, and it goes, we could have our own, just our own original blockchain. A dark world blockchain I
Yeah,
think
that's-
it'd be ideal for it to be called a world, a dark world where you could expand on.
Yep. Well, I think that's the goal.
Yep.
Cool.
So,
all right. I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Let me sign off here, and then